Hello, this is Mark Sheffield. Welcome to episode 5 of my channel, The Literary Professor. My many years of experience in the teaching of writing and my PhD degree in English will help you achieve a much higher level of knowledge and skill in every element of great writing. In a previous episode, I explained the problems of writers who depend on empty shapes to construct their compositions. Empty shapes, such as the 5-paragraph structure, don't help writers. In fact, the 5-paragraph structure gets in the way of writers' creativity and powers of invention. In today's podcast, I want to explain a better method of approaching any writing task. Instead of trying to fill empty spaces in the 5-paragraph form, writers should instead use what might be called the organic method. The organic method turns the focus of writers toward thinking and creating and away from filling in the blanks. I want to show you why I'm so confident about the natural method of writing. It's all because of the source of the concept. The art of writing is ancient. For thousands of years in the Western world, it was known as the art of rhetoric. When you hear the word rhetoric, your first reaction is probably negative. However, that reaction is inaccurate. Rhetoric is a noble skill, except when it is misused. The principles of rhetoric, as we understand them today, are rooted in the culture of ancient Greece and later Rome. So let's begin in the 5th century BC with the philosopher Socrates. It is widely agreed that he lies at the foundation of Western philosophy. Plato, a student of Socrates, wrote works that use Socrates as Plato's own voice. This genre is known as the Socratic dialogue. One of these dialogues is critical to the art of rhetoric. Known as Phaedrus, this book contains a lot of indispensable ideas about composition that are as useful and powerful as ever. Before we get to Phaedrus, I need to talk briefly about the so-called sophists. Sophists were professional teachers of rhetoric in ancient Greece. For a fee, they would teach young people the tricks of the trade, so to speak. That is, how to become persuasive in public speaking. Once the art of rhetoric became a system, unfortunately, it could be used for good or ill, for lying or telling the truth. Sophists bragged that they could make the best case look bad, or they could argue any side of a debate and win. A useful skill if you approve of that sort of thing. In the section of Phaedrus we'll be looking at, Socrates is in a dialogue with a man named Phaedrus. We find Socrates criticizing a speech by Lysias, a famous speaker of the day and probably a sophist. We'll see that Socrates does not have a high opinion of his speech. Why he thinks this way is vital for you to learn how writing works. It is important to realize that Socrates himself was not a sophist. That is, he was not cynical about truth. He searched for truth through dialogue with others, what we call the Socratic method today. Most of the time, he discovered that people knew much less than they claimed. You might call this cynical, but his attitude was actually one of humility about knowledge. Too bad this trait is not present to a greater degree in our society. Everyone I meet is absolutely certain of their own beliefs. I can truly say I've never won an argument in my life. Everyone seems to know just about everything, or so they think. Let's listen to Socrates talk with Phaedrus. Here we go. Socrates, don't you think the different parts of the speech are tossed in hit or miss? Or is there a really cogent reason for stating his second point in the second place? And is that the case with the rest of the speech? As for myself, in my ignorance, I thought that the writer set down whatever happened to come into his head. Can you explain his arrangement of the topics in the order he has adopted as the result of some principle of composition? Phaedrus: It's very kind of you to think me capable of such an accurate insight into his methods. Socrates: But to this you will surely agree. Every discourse, like a living creature, should be so put together that it has its own body and lacks neither head nor feet, middle nor extremities, all composed in such a way that they suit both each other and the whole. Well, what Socrates argues here is indispensable for a writer. The principle of composition that Socrates speaks of should be thought of as purpose or thesis. In a way, he's predicting the existence of DNA. Everything, Socrates is saying, has some sort of DNA, even stories, essays, and poems. To understand what Socrates means, think for a moment about two kinds of cats, the lion and the cheetah. The lion is much stronger and heavier than the cheetah. Because each of these cats has a different principle of composition, so to speak, each has its own form and purpose. Let's explore how. Lions hunt in groups. The male lion plays an important role. He is huge. He lets out an amazing roar near a large group of prey, frightening them into a stampede. In the meantime, the females are waiting in ambush farther away to pile on to some poor wildebeest or other prey that is running for its life. The cheetah, by contrast, mostly hunts alone and depends on a completely different set of skills than those of the lions. Built perfectly for the job, with a small head, a long tail, and other amazing traits, a cheetah will chase an impala that can run 60 miles an hour for an hour by running 70 miles per hour for maybe 15 seconds. It's not easy to catch an impala. If the cheetah can get close enough during the chase, it rather gently knocks the impala off its feet and then strangles it. Ouch. Two different cats. Two different principles of composition. You get the point. Now here's the connection to writing. The shape of a piece of writing depends on its DNA, or principle of composition. Now back to Phaedrus. Socrates continues, Examine then your friend's speech and see whether it conforms to this. You will find that it has no real difference from the epitaph which some say was inscribed on the tomb of Midas the Phrygian. Phaedrus: What inscription, and what's wrong with it? Socrates: It goes like this. A maiden of bronze am I, placed on the tomb of Midas. So long as water flows, so long as trees grow tall, here I abide on this tomb of tears. I declare to the passer-by that here lies Midas. And you may perceive, I have no doubt, that it makes not the slightest difference which line comes first or last. Wow. Socrates is showing us how writing works. For him, writing is about logical connections, logical order, under the control of some principle of composition. So, are you on safe ground if you loosen the grip of empty shapes on your mind? Taking Socrates as my authority, I say yes. Take a chance. Dive into the deep end of the pool. Your writing life will change profoundly.